Gregory Pepper first came to my attention in 2010 when he released The Great Depression, an album with Factor Chandelier under the name Common Grackle, released on Factor Music. The album was on constant rotation in my house for over a year and is still an album I return to on a regular basis. Based in one of the hottest musical cities in the world, Guelph, he is known as a genre-crossing multi-instrumentalist, composing short songs which often don't have solos, and he's even released an EP through an old boss of mine's record label. Today we're talking about his latest album, No More Skulls, which he self-released on August the 22nd. Hi Peps, the warmest of welcomes to the 10,000 Hours of Indie podcast.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
So the new album is great, but your short song style always leaves me wanting more, every time.
Well, that's good, because if you were to walk out of a movie and say, man, that really dragged on, I wish they'd wrapped up during the second climactic battle scene, you know, you'd be want to edit down a little bit. So I'm trying to leave the people wanting more.
It's a good way to be. There are a lot of films I walk out of feeling that way, to be fair.
Indeed.
The album clocks in at 16 minutes and a second. What is it you enjoy so much about keeping things short and to the point?
I don't know that it's so much a deliberate outcome as it is a byproduct of my overworking songs until even I am bored. Even I am bored with them. And so I become a pretty unforgiving editor of my own work. For a long time, actually, ever since I was in a band called the Dymaxions. This was predates Common Grackle and Gregory Pepper and his Problems. I remember we had this motto about getting the most out of the least. And so it's been a long-standing goal of mine to cut off as much fat from the bone as possible and just leave the protein for the kids.
Good way of looking at it, yeah. I really love the 60s lounge feel of Cardinal song on the album. That's probably my favourite song. What's your starting point with a song like that?
If I remember correctly, the original Pro Tools file was called One for the Bitch Boys. And I think I just arranged an a cappella vocal line with a lot of heavy sort of dominant and major sevenths in it. So I think it was just a sonic vocal arrangement experiment. And, in spite of myself, I just kept working away at it as I do. And it turned into a proper song. I think I was just about getting woken up by those darn birds.
Is that a common starting point for you? You've got sort of voice notes which you work from, or sort of vocal lines that come first?
Yeah, usually. Or it's just fishing around on the piano and guitar until the universe presents something to you that you hopefully haven't plagiarized from elsewhere. And I stopped recording demos on my phone a long time ago. I now have a principled stance where if I remember it the next day, I figure it's worth pursuing.
The Beatles principle.
Is that right? Is that wow?
Yeah, in the early days, they wrote like 3 or 4 songs a day, and if they could remember them the next day, they thought they'd be good songs. If they didn't, then it disappeared forever.
True. Well, they probably didn't even have the opportunity to record it if they wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
Great minds think alike.
So I must ask about the album title, No More Skulls. Is this a reference to something in particular?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty deliberate, affirmation or motto or a reminder to myself. I suppose a lot of my earlier work focused on death and decay in a way that kind of like say tawdry or glamorized the idea of death, as young men's often do. And now that I'm kind of approaching the twilight of my artistic career, I've become a bit more I've been sort of surrendering to that notion of finality and maybe like appreciating what fleeting time I have on earth. as loved ones and friends pass away and get sick as they do. I remember thinking I wanted to make a deliberate effort to stop drawing skulls and writing about death in such a pithy manner. I do realize the inherent hypocrisy of saying that and then putting skulls on the album cover and singing a song that's just about death. But yeah, I did almost get I almost got smushed by a big old truck. And then I kind of wrote that poem. And then the chorus to that eponymous track was sort of me giving myself a shake and saying no more peps, or no more skulls peppy, no more peps scully, no more skulls peppy. That's me just kind of trying to remind myself of where the focus should lie.
So your real surname is Peretz. Why did you feel you needed to translate it for English for your musical stage name?
Well, you're letting the cat out of the bag here, because I used to tour a lot in my younger years, and I thought if I had a nom de plume, the border guards wouldn't be able to look at your passport and find out that you're up to no good trying to make dozens of dollars in their great capitalist cesspool. No, you know what? I never really liked the sound of my last name, to be honest. And the name Pepper is just the Cyrillic root name. It's like a Ukrainian name. So really, if the border agents had done their due diligence in the mid 20th century when my family immigrated, I would have been Gregory Pepper. So I'm just righting a historical wrong.
So you're a multi-instrumentalist like so many of my guests and myself. Did you also start, like most of us, with lessons on something and progress from there?
Yeah, I started out on guitar when I was maybe about 12 or 13. Heard the Blue Album, Dookie, Smash, all those, that mid-90s alternative rock boom. Yeah, got a guitar, got a 4-track, tapers into the multi-tracking one-man band side of things, and started figuring out how everything worked. And my joy has always been just making music on my own, as spiritual as it can be, performing and harmonizing with other people. I think my strength lies in self-led, almost dictatorial, singular creative process. So yeah, started with guitar and spread like a virus from there. I never could play the darn violin. I was high off my own sense of power and bought a violin in my 20s, and these big meat hooks just couldn't get the intonation right.
I bought myself a saxophone a couple of years ago, and it's barely been out of the box. And I promised myself I've got to learn something on it, and I'm still not there. Every one of us, I think, picks an instrument and goes, "Yeah, that'll be fun," and it doesn't quite happen.
Yeah.
How do you think living in such a musically vibrant area helps you musically, or does it not?
There was a period of maybe about 10 years where I was part of you could call it a community, or a clique, maybe is more apropos. And that obviously helps with just the mechanical logistics of playing shows and meeting other like-minded people. That all kind of went by the wayside during COVID, and now I'm sort of at the age where I don't know what's going on. I'm sure that there are shows somewhere. There are kids making crazy music that I don't understand in a basement, and that's great. I was probably resentful about that for a little while as, my own star faded. But I think that's just sort of the natural order of things.
So going back to when I first heard you, Common Grackle, which is still a mainstay in my albums playlist, how did the Great Depression come about? As you had quite a few collaborators on that album, and it has quite a different sound to your solo material.
Yeah, that was very much contrived by the person that was running that record label, Chesky Ramos, who's a longtime friend and collaborator of mine. He had released an album by Factor Chandelier at the time. I guess he was typecasting us. He figured we're both Canadian, so we ought to make a record together. No, he knew that I had a sort of a penchant for melodies and was a lyricist, and that Graham was making these great instrumental hip hop tracks. So we vowed that we would make a really pasty Canadian version of Gnarls Barkley. And we did that the old-fashioned way. We made that record before ever actually meeting face-to-face. We were just sending files back and forth, and the first time we met was to mix it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when we've been working together ever since. We just did a song a couple months ago. It came out.
Yeah.
And Graham's a great guy. I was glad that Chesky holstered that upon us.
So you've managed to release almost an album every 2 years, and as a solo artist, I think that's quite prolific over 20 years. How do you keep constantly producing music of such high quality on your own over such a long period?
Well, it's kind of you to say. None of it's terribly deliberate. I've thrown my hat down in anger many times and said I was done, but inevitably I get drawn back to the old fishing hole. And, I do care. I do care a lot about music, the ephemeral side of it, the discovery and what would you call it? The ephemeral beauty, not to sound too dramatic. I just loathe the logistic side of it, like the vapid self-promotion and the superficial side. But as far as writing and recording, I could do that all day long for the rest of my life.
That actually leads in nicely to the next question, which is about live shows. There's no live shows listed for you anywhere on your socials or website or anything. Is there anything coming up, or are you happy to just, almost be a bedroom musician, as it were, these days?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that I would never say never, but don't hold your breath. I think I've told this anecdote before, but I remember Ian MacKaye, right, of Minor Threat. He had this quote where he goes, "The album is the menu, but the live show is the actual main course coming out." I could not disagree with that anymore. For me, the album is the thing. That's the genuine article. That's what I'm putting my thought into. I want someone to put on headphones and go for a walk in the woods and absorb it. And anytime I play live, there's just a host of potential disasters. There's landmines that you're constantly stepping around. You're not in a good mood. The sound is crummy. You break a string. You got soupy guts. I feel I can't deliver what I think the audience deserves. I'm ultimately left dissatisfied with the experience. And that says that, and that's not even bringing up like the self-destructive nature of touring and being away from your family and losing money, and again just the peacocking involved. I can't do it. I know I sound so miserable. I do love music, but the live aspect of it, it never clicked with me.
Is it partly maybe because as a solo artist there's no way you could put on the show that you record? There's so many layers to your music.
Well, it depends. I've done a few stripped down sort of rock albums that I've toured with a 4 or 5 piece band. So it is possible, but for sure, like this, the most recent recording is a sonically kind of an odd bedroom affair. Yeah. The thing I discovered was, for the longest time, I would play with other musicians and I would try to sort of beat them into submission and get them to play parts a certain way and arrange the songs as close as it could be to the album. And it became pretty clear that didn't work. And so I got the most success out of adapting the songs to the style of player and letting them kind of take on a new shape or form. But ultimately, the people that, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't insult anybody, the really hot shit players that made my songs sound great have no real incentive to tour with me, because it's not like we're making much money. And the people that do want to tour with me really aren't bringing much to the table.
No, yeah. No, that
you know what I
totally
mean. And it was sort of like, ultimately, I think the last tour I did in the States, I just did it with a pedal that had a bunch of preset drum beats, and I would do some live looping and stuff. But I was mostly just playing rolling around on the floor with the Seinfeld bass line playing in the background just for like cheap laughs, because no one cares about the songs.
Yeah.
I went to the homepage for your podcast, and you're talking a lot about, there's a focus on youth and the people who are ascending and trying new exciting things. And unfortunately, you've caught me in a bit of a post-Peacock era. As much as I love music, I've grown pretty cynical about some of the artifices that exist around it. Maybe this could be a cautionary tale to some of the younger musicians that you speak to. Don't become peps.
Oh, to be fair, I did a series called Being Independent, which is more about sort of the pitfalls and the problems that bands have. So I do try and look at both sides. I mean, it's almost impossible to be a full-time or actually make money out of being a musician these days unless you're signed to a major label. Everybody I've spoken to, music is their passion, not their job. Maybe there's a couple that are outside of that, but I think being an independent musician is the most difficult fucking thing you can do with your life.
Yeah, I always laugh when you see like interviews with really like objectively successful legacy artists, and they go, "Yeah, I would be doing this even if I didn't make a 1 red cent." There's,
and how true is that?
Here. The proof is in the pudding over here. I'm doing it. I'm doing it for all 12 of you.
So the final question: what music are you listening to at the moment that people may not be aware of and should take some time to check out?
Oh, this is always a tough one. You know, I feel like I'm stuck in some kind of early 2000s time warp. I subscribe to one of these godless music streamers, and I have so much music at my fingertips, and yet I just keep going back and listening to the music I listened to in my early 20s. You know, I'll put my recommendation in for a band that I adore that not a lot of people know that just did a 20-year retrospective reunion show. And that's a band from Austin, Texas called Slow Reader. They did one eponymous album on Fueled by Ramen, I think in the early aughts. And that will forever be one of my favorites. And I think more people should try to listen to it. Although I'm not even sure if it's on the streamers, to be honest. We're going to see the Granddaddy 20th reunion concert of Software Slump.
Oh, that would be good.
In Toronto. And I very rarely go to shows, but I think that's one that might be worth leaving the house for. So I'm looking forward to that. So for any of your younger listeners, if you haven't listened to Granddaddy's sophomore album, I would also strongly recommend that. But as far as the year 2025, I can't say I have any deep insights outside of what the algorithm is pushing down my throat.
So for anyone wishing to find out more, you have a website, camppepper.com, and you're active-ish on Instagram, Facebook, and every musician's favorite channel, it seems, Bandcamp.
Yeah, I'm currently working on a comic strip that tries to distill some of my feelings about this recent album I put out. So hopefully by the time this is released, that'll be posted on my Instagram, and I can get out a slightly more succinct message than I've offered today.
No, it's been a pleasure having you here. No More Skulls by Gregory Pepper now and is available digitally through Bandcamp and across streaming platforms. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
It was a pleasure, and thank you so much.
If you ever do get a band together or want to come over to Europe, we'd love to see you over here.
All right, I'll hold you to that.